Pierluigi Gollini is set to join Tottenham Hotspurs on loan with an option to buy, and it now poses the question moving into this season, is Gollini or Hugo Lloris going to be the man in net for Tottenham Hotspurs? Hugo Lloris is now approaching age 34, and Gollini has shown to have some promise with Atalanta. And so we're going to be talking about in today's video who we think should be the number one for Tottenham Hotspurs this season. But first off, Lane, give us the details on this move of Gollini to Tottenham Hotspurs.
Well, like you said, Gollini will be joining on a loan deal. It is a season-long loan. As Fabrizio Romano says here, official and confirmed, Pierluigi Gollini joins Tottenham Hotspur on loan with a buy option of 15 million euros until June 2022. Potential obligation to buy in the case he reaches 20 caps. So if he has 20 performances, I'm not sure if it's across all competitions or if it's across just the Premier League, then they will be obliged to buy him for 15 million euros, which is not steep at all for a top quality goalkeeper. In my opinion, I think he is a top end goalkeeper. Could eventually be the Italian starter, but probably never because Donnarumma is going to take that spot for his career, probably. But Gollini is obviously a top quality, world class goalkeeper, in my opinion, playing week in, week out for Atalanta. Should he reach these 20 caps, they will be obliged to sign him, which I do think he will reach those caps, which really heavily depends on me thinking, is this League Cup appearances? Is this Conference League? Is this your FA Cup? Or is it just Premier League? Because if it's just Premier League, I'm not sure if he will get all 20 caps because you know you got Hugo Lloris in net. Who will be your number one? We'll talk about that in a sec. But that really, the caps thing there that Fabrizio says really leaves me on a cliffhanger, which really does not tell me much, which I'd like to dive into further eventually. But what do you think about those details on those contracts for Gollini?
Yeah, like you said, I think it's definitely a fair price for Tottenham if they do end up having those 20 caps or if they decide to buy him outright anyways. I think 15 million of someone of his caliber at only age 26, right in the middle of the prime, entering the prime of his career, is definitely a very fair and good price. And Hugo Lloris is now at age 34. He's definitely not a spring chicken anymore, and he has declined in form over the last couple of years, and they are going to need to start thinking about a replacement for him. So Gollini bringing him in on loan. If he has a good season, I definitely wouldn't be shocked to see Tottenham buy him. As you mentioned, the 20 caps does seem a bit unclear, given the fact that it isn't specified. It would tend to think that it is going to be in all competitions, and in which case, as you mentioned, it's probably a fairly safe assumption that he probably will hit those 20 caps. So it's probably likely that that 15 million obligation will be triggered. I think it's going to be a good deal for Tottenham, but Atalanta had a bit of a boatload of goalkeepers as it is, and they brought in Musso now this summer from Udinese, so they had to get rid of someone, and so moving on from Gollini makes sense. It makes sense for Tottenham Hotspur to look for someone, as Hugo Lloris is very much ending the near end of his career.
Yeah, exactly. And before we want to soon who is going to be our number one or who we would like to see be the number one, I want to look at some of the stats here. And when you're in the Premier League, you're playing the likes of Burnley, you're playing Crystal Palace, you're playing Brentford. Some of those teams are probably going to be playing Route One, lob it down the field, counterattack, cross into the box, stuff like that, hit corners in the box. The one stat that stands out for me for Golini is his crosses stop percentage. He stopped 6.5%, which puts him in the 39th percentile of all goalkeepers in the world, which is extremely low. And in the Premier League, that is a dangerous stat to look at because you know you're going to be playing Burnley, you're going to be playing Crystal Palace, Everton, teams like that who are going to lob it into your Chris Woods, your Calvert-Lewins, your Harry Kanes, and try to win balls in the air, try to knock on balls, such like that. And it is very dangerous if your goalie cannot get up there and make that grab or that crucial punch. What do you think about that from a perspective like that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely worrisome. I think that's very important for any goalkeeper, especially in the Premier League. And you've seen some teams that have either struggled with that in previous years or teams that have emphasized bringing in someone that has that type of length. You look at someone like Chelsea last year, going from someone who they brought in like Kepa, who didn't transition that went to the Premier League, who doesn't have that type of length, doesn't have that type of ability on crosses, to someone who has that size, that length, and Edward Mendy, who had a lot more success. And you could see something similar for Gollini. His abilities from a stop and saving of shot standpoint is quite good. but you definitely have to be worried about his size and his ability on crosses in a league that can often be heavily involved in them. You can see a lot of crosses come in, you can see a lot of plays or games that are won by corners for some teams, like the likes of Burnley, like Crystal Palace, that rely on some size up top, that rely on some set pieces and being able to get some headers. And so having a keeper that can come out and win those balls for you in the air is very important. So Gollini having that low of an ability that probably isn't really going to improve due to his size is something that definitely has to be worrisome for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And we just talked about Gollini's height, his cross stopping ability. I just looked at Hugo Lloris here, and Hugo is actually the same height as Gollini, 6'2", but his crossing stopping is really atrocious. You look at Gollini, like we said, 6.5% in games, which is a 39th percentile of all goalkeepers. And you go and you look at Hugo Lloris, 4.7%, placing him in the 7th percentile out of all goalkeepers, which I thought 39 percentile was terrible. Look at Hugo Lloris, that is absolutely abysmal. We've seen him in years in the Premier League drop down massively, and his errors have been just terrible. Since he had that massive injury since the World Cup, he's never been the same for me. And yeah, you can see it in some of his stats there, and crosses stopped. And I don't know if it's just Premier League changes you and your crossing ability, but some goalkeepers are just better suited to a physical crossing stopping kind of game.
Yeah, definitely. It's a mental thing sometimes too, and just being able to go out and take those battles and just being able to be out there, go out confident, whether that's a catch or a punch. Sometimes it's just mental, and sometimes it's just having that mental fortitude to go out and win that ball and not be afraid of the contact. And sometimes it's just frankly a size thing, but when you're comparing two guys that are both the same height and someone is 22 percentiles, or pardon me, 32 percentiles above the other, that is a big concern, and that is something that obviously is a concern of Hugo Lloris's. His shot stopping has always been good. It has progressed in a negative fashion throughout the last couple of years, and that leads to a trend where, at least for me personally, I think you kind of have to give the nod to Gollini as the number one this year. I don't know if it's likely. I think it's going to be hard to just say, hey, Hugo, you're done now, as long as he's still on the team. But I think that's what I would recommend. If Gollini doesn't adjust well to the Premier League, you always can refer back, as much as Hugo might not be happy with that. Hugo's probably gone in a year or two anyways. I wouldn't be too concerned about it. But I think Gollini has to be that guy that at least has the most upside to potentially being the best goalie for Tottenham Hotspurs this year.
Yeah, I completely agree here. And I was looking at goals allowed. You could Premier League fans might or Tottenham fans might argue Gollini's let in 26 goals out of 25 appearances in Serie A. But if you watch Atalanta like we do, they don't defend. They're an attacking, free flowing side who just go for it and they send it and they just say we'll score more goals than you guys score against us. And that's why Gollini is allowed more than he's played in, basically, even though Lloris is allowed 45 playing in 38. But I do agree with you. I think Gollini should get the nod. I think he is the better of the goalies. He is 8 years younger than Hugo Lloris. Some argue goalkeepers don't hit their prime till they're 31, 32, 33, 34, like Lloris is. But he has been on the decline for me for a while. I think his errors have been worse than any other goalkeeper in the Premier League. I might be wrong in that, but I think he is. For me, Gollini has been a standout player for Atalanta for the past couple of years. He's been fantastic in the Champions League, helping Atalanta get into the Champions League. He has been just a force for Atalanta, and I think at 26 years of age, for a 15 million obligation, I just don't think he can go wrong. His talent, like you said, his shot stopping ability. But just with Hugo Lloris being there, the wages he's already on, just everyone knowing who he is in the Premier League, I think it's going to be hard to get him out first season in net. But I do hope Gollini plays all the cup games, all the conference games, and gets that obligation to buy because he should be their starter for years to come, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's time to start looking towards the turning of the page as far as Tottenham's goalkeeper goes. Moving on from Hugo Lloris, who is now 34, and turning the page to a much younger Gollini. Let us know down in the comment section who should start for Tottenham, and if you think that is who will start for Tottenham summer. I would love to see Gollini start, but unfortunately, I don't really think that's going to happen. Let us know what you guys think down in the comment section down below, and be sure to leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you did enjoy and want more transfer news updates like this, and season previews and updates as we enter closer and closer to the league schedule. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.